أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد. Firstly, to start with the hadith of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wa a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to make this dua that said, Oh Allah, I ask you for good knowledge which is beneficial, and I seek refuge in you from knowledge which is fruitless, i.e. knowledge which is not of any benefit. And that's narrated in Tabarani. The topic today, my dear Muslims, is about knowledge which is not beneficial. And this particular talk, as most of the talks I deliver, are talks with our own Sheikh Umar Bakr Muhammad, Hafizullah, who he delivered himself many years ago, and which were collected by his own students. Undoubtedly, it is not possible for us to count the many blessings and favors of the Salaf, of the pious predecessors. From the time of the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ and his companions radiyallahu anhum till this very day, we have been benefiting from knowledge they left behind and transmitted. And from the Aqidah of Tawheed, from the purification of the Aqidah from Shirk, and from the implementation of the Sunnah, from resisting the Bid'ah, the innovations, and from the Hawa, and the desire, from partisanship, from patriotism, from nationalism, from idealism. So obviously, from the time of the revelation, our pious predecessors from the Sahaba, from the Tabi'in after them, from the Tabi'in after them, and many ulama and people who used to study the deen, this is how the deen today has been passed on to us. This is why, like people like Imam Bukhari who collected hadith, etc. The ulama, they used to teach people, those people used to learn, and they used to pass on what they used to learn, and they used to have students. And those students, then some of them went on to become ulama themselves, and that's how we end up in the situation today. So the knowledge is something has to be passed on. And there's one beautiful statement here from Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah. He said that people need knowledge more than they need food and drink, because they need food and drink 2 or 3 times a day, but they need knowledge all the time. Subhanallah. And he went on to say, thus the loss of scholars is a great calamity. And especially at these times, obviously, my dear Muslims, where you see a lot of ignorance in the ummah, a lot of people even sometimes maybe not ABC Islam. This is a time where we need the ulama to teach us, to educate the ummah, when there's mass confusion about a lot of topics, etc. But obviously, today we live in times where, has always been the case, where the ulama have been persecuted by the Taghut, and many ulama in prison. Nowadays, many ulama on the run. You see many ulama on bail conditions, many other things. So that was a statement from Imam Ahmad. And Allah SWT says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Zumar, that's Surah 39, verse number 9, that say, are those who know equal to those who do not know? So Allah SWT asking this question, are those who know equal to those who do not know? And obviously the answer is no, they're not equal. Like the one in another verse, Allah says that the one who is blind equal to the one who can see. So the Surah Zumar, Surah 39 verse 9 also says, are those who know equal to those who do not know? So obviously, my dear Muslims, the jahil person, or someone who just about knows the basis of the deen, is not equal to the alim. The one who studied the deen for years, who knows about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows about the Quran, about the tafsir, and knows about hadith. He's not equal to the one, he just knows how to pray and how to fast, etc. So in terms of knowledge, my dear Muslims, of the known by necessity, they are the same. The alim and the one who's a layman, that we say they are the same. Imam Shafi'i said that the alim and the layman are equal in the known by necessity. So what does that mean? So the alim, he knows alcohol is haram. The layman, he also knows alcohol is haram. So that's why on things like known by necessity, even the one who's lay Muslim, he can account the alim. So if the alim today, he turns around and say that, look, alcohol is allowed, even the lay Muslim can account him, because this is known by necessity. This is basic knowledge which every Muslim knows. You see, so this is one of the things. Some people they have this idea that, look, he's an alim, and you're just a layman. You can't account him. But on something, some knowledge, the alim and the layman are equal. You see, so the alim and the layman, he will know that you have to pray 5 times a day. You cannot commit shirk. You cannot make tahakum to taghut. You see, so even the lay person can account the alim if he goes against what is known by necessity. And one of the problems we have today, some people they treat the ulama as like infallible. The ulama are still human beings. They're prone to mistake. They're prone to even becoming corrupted. You see, and we cannot treat them like this. And I remember that I was debating one brother on Twitter, and he was he was saying regarding the khilafah that's been announced. He was saying that, look, the Khawarij. I said, okay, give me one evidence why you say that. And the evidence was, well, the ulama have said so. I said, okay, even if the ulama had said so, the thing is, you should know what the ulama have said, why the Khawarij, if that's the case. So you should be able to at least say, look, the ulama says that they're Khawarij because of this reason. But he was not able to provide a single reason. It was just, well, look, the ulama have said so, so I accept it. You need to. That's why the ulama, we don't follow them just because they're ulama. We follow the ulama and we take from them because they take from the Quran and the Sunnah. You see, and we don't just say this person spoke the haqq because he's the great sheikh. If he contradicts the Quran and the Sunnah, then we reject what he said. So be careful, obviously, of this, my dear Muslim. And that's what happened with the Bani Israel. If you remember in Surah Tawbah verse 31, it says they took their priests and their rabbis as lords besides Allah. They took them as lords besides Allah. Because the priests and rabbis, what they used to do, they used to make istiqlal, they used to make halal haram and haram halal. Even though the people, they knew that, look, this is clear, this is not allowed. But their ulama, their scholars, they used to permit it for the people. And rather saying that, look, this is not allowed, they had that kind of blind following that, well, he said so. And even though completely overruled what Allah had said, but they took it from them. And there's one of a hadith where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, there's something I fear for you more greater than the Dajjal. And they said that is the misguided scholars. And today, obviously, my dear Muslims, you have people which many people look up to as scholars, but you will hear the most strangest thing come out of their mouths. People who are supposed to be learned people of the deen. And I'm sure you heard some of these very ajib things that even a lay Muslim can realize this is wrong. You see, I'm not going to name any names, but you probably know who they are. Like recently someone said that fighting the disbelievers, doing jihad, was for back then, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba. It doesn't apply to you and me today. Subhanallah. Even though throughout our Islamic history, the Muslims have always done jihad against the disbelievers. But now today it's like, oh look, the jihad against the mushrikeen has been abrogated or something. There's no evidence for this at all. Even a lay Muslim can tell you that. But you hear people who claim to be scholars say stuff like this. Even one man I heard recently, who claims to be a learned person, yet he says that the Prophet ﷺ, he loved the mushrikeen, and he loved those who insulted him. Subhanallah. And yet, thousands and possibly millions of people look up to this person, as supposed to be a learned person of the deen. Another man, he said that you cannot call the non-Muslims kuffar. I'm sure you heard that. You cannot, even someone, I don't know if it's the same person, someone said, you can't call the kuffar. Now straight away when you hear that, did he just call them kuffar? You can't call the kuffar. Where is this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls them in the Quran, the Prophet sallallahu called them kuffar. That is their action. Even the term non-Muslim, it's not really the most correct term for them. The correct term is kafir, disbeliever. That is their title. They're not potential Muslims or fellow British citizens, you see. But you see, you'll hear people who claim to have knowledge say stuff like this. Another man who claimed to be a scholar, he says that it's allowed for Muslims to join the American army to go and fight against the Muslims, to fight against the own brother, to ally with the kuffar. My dear Muslims, obviously we live in a strange time. There's someone who claims to be a scholar, he will say that, and the people, they will absorb it. And they won't even question it. Because they have that mentality, well look, he's the alim, he knows better. That's why I said on matters of knowing by necessity, even the layman can account the scholar. If a scholar suddenly starts saying stuff like, look, you can join the British army and kill the Muslims, in Iraq and Afghanistan, even the layman can stand up and say, look, this is batil. You see. Another one, he said that voting in democratic elections for a man to legislate, he said it's commanding good and forbidding evil. It's hisbah. Subhanallah. So the shirk has, like the brother said, the dog has been, even if you coat it with gold, it's still a dog. So people trying to coat the shirk with good terminology. This won't change the fact that this is still shirk in Allah. And other people, who claim to have knowledge, and people look up to them as knowledgeable, they say that it's allowed for you to work for the MI5, the British Secret Services, hand over information about your brothers to them. This is the ajib times we're living in, my dear Muslim. And obviously the thing, they never benefited from the knowledge, my dear Muslim. You see, the knowledge is like the rizq, the sustenance. The Shaykh, he gave the example, like if you got £10 in your pocket, that's not your rizq. That's just your something that you own. Rizq is when you spend it and you start benefiting from it. That's when it becomes your rizq. So it's same like that. The knowledge is similar like this. Lot of us, we have data in our head, but if we don't use that data, that knowledge, to act upon it and to convey it, it's nothing. It's not benefiting us at all, and it's just data in our head. And that's why those people, obviously, subhanAllah, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with the knowledge, they don't use it for His sake and use it to in fact spread corruption. Their knowledge will be a witness against them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us in the Quran that those who fear Him most are those who have knowledge, i.e. the ulama, and not those who have learned but work with the taghut, or those who are learned but they are silent about the taghut, or those who resist the haqq instead of the batil.
So what's the reference?
For which one?
That ayah that you just mentioned.
Which ayah?
You said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in...
No, this is just general. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us in the Quran that those who fear Him most. Or this is actually Surah Fatir, Surah 35 verse 28. That the verse I said, those who fear Allah the most among His servants are the ulama. So sadly today, many people, they have left the teachings of the Salaf, of the pious predecessors, and they began to blindly follow the Khalaf, those who came later. In particular, Habashi groups, Tahriris, and even the so-called Salafis, those who love the Queen. Yeah. There was one brother described as the HMS, Her Majesty Salafis. In fact, yet they work for the MI5, claiming that it will make them closer to Allah. And there are many scholars, like the scholars of Al Saud, or Al Saud, the Saudi government, who, when they attain knowledge, they start to distort it and use it to serve the government. You see, many people, obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with knowledge, but they, instead of using that knowledge to speak the haqq, to call to the haqq, to defend Islam, to defend the rights of Allah, instead they use that knowledge for gaining fame, gaining glory and praise in this life, gaining position. That's why Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said the mufti of the Taghut is Taghut. You see. So there are people, my dear Muslims, they may have knowledge, but if they don't use that knowledge in the right avenue, then that knowledge is not beneficial for them. And that knowledge, in fact, will be a witness against them. And in another verse, Surah Araf, Surah 7, verse 175, Allah says, and recite to them the story to him who we gave our ayat, but he threw them away. So Shaitan followed him and he became of those who went astray. And this is about Ibn Ba'ura, if I pronounced that correct, was favored by Allah and given knowledge, yet despite this he died as a mushrik. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another verse, in again Surah Araf, Surah 7, verse 176, and had we willed, we would have surely have elevated him therewith, but he clung to the earth and followed his own vain desires. So his description is the description of a dog. If you drive him away, he lolls his tongue out, and if you leave him alone, he still longs his tongue out. Such is the description of the people who reject our ayat. So relate the stories, perhaps they may reflect.
What's the reference?
Surah Al-A'raf, Surah 7, verse 176. So after the earlier Salaf passed away, people who inherited the knowledge, they began to pick and choose only that which was good for them in this life. And they claim Allah will forgive them in the hereafter. And again, same surah, verse 169, Allah SWT says, Surah Araf 169, then after them a succeeded generation which inherited the book, but they chose for themselves the good of this low life, saying, everything will be forgiven to us. And if again they offer of the like evil pledge of this world come their way, they would seize them. Was not the covenant of the book taken from them that they would not say about Allah anything but the truth? And they have studied what is in the book, and the home of the hereafter is better for those who are muttaqun, for those who are pious. So you see, my dear Muslim, many people today, they're selling the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, using them to gain in this life, using the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, using the position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given them in order for them to gain the corruption, to spread the corruption for position. Many people, you see, for the sake of being elevated, being taken care of by the Taghut, they have used their knowledge in order to just enjoy themselves in this life and gain the fame and fortune in this life. Similarly, there are many scholars today who are members of the highest committees who study the deen but conceal knowledge and issue fatwa in order to please their masters. although they wear the sunnah, they have the hearts of the munafiqeen. So there are times when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He praised knowledge, and there are times when He dispraised it, when it did not benefit the person. The knowledge of those who decide to sell themselves and support the Taghut will harm them on the Day of Judgment. And there are others who have knowledge which is completely irrelevant and unbeneficial in the relation to the Akhirah. Many people today, they are so proud to study maths, science, psychology, medicine, physics. And some like to show off that they are doctors and barristers and psychologists. However, the knowledge they have is only apparent in worldly matters, which will not benefit them in the afterlife. So you see, obviously you'll see in society, my dear Muslim, many people, even many Muslims, they become doctors, become engineers. But if you ask them about basic aspects of the deen, they can't tell you. But people will class them as very knowledgeable. Okay, he may know how, E equals MC squared. How many of you know that? So he's so knowledgeable. He knows about nuclear physics and rocket science. But you ask him, what's Taghut? How do you reject Taghut? Where's Allah? He'll say it's everywhere or something. He has knowledge of the worldly life. He knows about energy equals mass times a light's speed squared. But that's not going to help you in the hereafter, you see. The knowledge, you see, many people, they're seeking after the knowledge. It's only good for them in this life, for some dunya matter. But the real knowledge, my dear Muslim, is we need to know about is obviously about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about His deen, about halal and haram, about shirk and kufr, how we can avoid it, how we can reject Taghut. These are the real type of knowledge we need, the more important. So you might have someone, he's a doctor, yet he could be jahil, because he doesn't know much about Islam. Yeah, you can have someone, he may be a dropout from college or whatever, yet he studies the deen, he studies Islam, he's learning about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His attributes, His function, he's learning about Sharia, about halal and haram. That stuff will be more beneficial to him. That's why in the hadith where the Prophet Muhammad said that seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim. The Prophet was talking about that type of knowledge about the deen. You see, people then misunderstand this hadith and they think, look, I'm studying about botany, about plants. The Prophet said, look, seeking knowledge is front. I've been studying for 10 years, all these plants and insects. That's not the knowledge to make. The knowledge that is far is to learn about your deen, learn about Tawheed, learn about Kufr bil Taghut, Iman Billah, learn about Allah, His names and attributes, learn about paradise and hellfire, learn about Sharia, about halal and haram, the rules. These are the type of knowledge. Learn about the prayer, how to pray, the rules of prayer, rules of fasting, etc. This is the type of knowledge, my dear Muslims, that we should really be seeking. And obviously other knowledge about dunya stuff, if someone were to learn, I don't know, how to build a bridge, etc. This is permissible. But one of the problems we have today is many Muslims, they never study in depth their deen, but they're studying knowledge which is just permissible and just beneficial in their life. That's why one of the things you see, many Muslims, when they go to the kuffar state schools, what do they teach you there? They just teach you about dunya knowledge. They might teach you about, about osmosis and, about physics, Newton's theory, all that thingy. But if you look at a lot of these state schools, and we went through it. See, when our parents came to this country, they didn't know what these state schools were about. They just thought, look, this education thingy, they sent their kids there. And by Allah, those kuffar state schools, they're designed to turn you into atheists. They promote the atheism, they promote the secularism, they promote the democracy. Even if you remember from school, those who went in this country, you see RE, religious education, was dedicated to like maybe an hour a week. And it wasn't taken seriously. You have to have a supply teacher. Everyone messed around in RE. Religion wasn't taken seriously, but they promote the atheism, they promote the Darwin's theory, and many Muslim kids, they never started with a ground sound knowledge in the Deen, and instead they started with all this. So 6 hours, 7 hours a week, they were pumped. The kuffar teaching them. Then when they're exhausted, they go for maybe an hour or two to the madrasa to learn about Deen. And that's why I've heard, many Muslim children, they speak very highly from their own education of science and maths. And they claim, and you see, that type of knowledge, okay, he had knowledge of that. But then they start commenting on aspects of the Deen. So he's got a PhD in maybe plant studies, yeah. But he now wants to debate with you about Khilafah and its conditions and about the Khawarij. Leave that to the people who have knowledge, or study that particular topic. Okay, I'm just trying to multitask. Let me undock a few people, inshallah. Okay, so another verse, Allah subhanahu says, Surah Ar-Rum, Surah 30, verse number 7. They know only the outside appearance of the life of this world, like irrigating life of this world, and they are heedless of the hereafter. So there are some people, kuffar, obviously they have knowledge. They have knowledge on, how to make rockets and stuff. But that knowledge, all their studies and all their PhDs, some of them, they're professors. But they're going to go hellfire. They never accepted Islam. And that knowledge, they're not going to help them in the hereafter. You see. So today, they learn one or two few words from the kuffar, and with that they become so proud, and even feel that it's not important or necessary to study Sharia. You see, and that's what happens, my dear Muslim. When many Muslims, they learn from the kuffar institution, the kuffar gave them a PhD, and now they become doctor. They feel so proud. This is the great. This person is so learned. Yet you'll find some of them don't even know how to make wudu. They got PhD though. They don't know. Some of them you meet, very ajib situation. He's a doctor, but he doesn't know basics of the Deen. Because all his life, he busied his life for years studying medicine, which is permissible, but he never dedicates, he never thought, look, more important knowledge that I need to seek is about Islam, it's about the Deen. And that is one of the problems. People, they don't dedicate time for the studies of the Deen, and instead they spend many hours and possibly years studying, learning about stuff which is just for only this life. There are two types of knowledge, my dear Muslims: ilm nafi', which is beneficial knowledge, and ilm ghayr nafi', knowledge which is not beneficial. And we have been taught in Islam to seek refuge in Allah from knowledge which is fruitless, which is not beneficial. And the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ used to ask Allah. So the Prophet ﷺ used to make this dua: Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min nafsin la tashba, wa min qalbin la yakhsha, wa min ilmin la yanfa, wa min dawatin la yustajabu laha. And this means, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from a soul that is not satisfied, and from a heart which has no taqwa, and from knowledge which does not benefit, and from da'wah which is not answered. This is in Sahih Muslim. Just a Sahih Muslim. So there are some types of knowledge or science which are better to be ignorant about as well, such as magic. Yeah. And to be ignorant about such sciences, in fact, is better than knowing them. This is one, as I mentioned, see, some people, they study the deen of the kuffar. They study theology and the Greek philosophy and stuff like this, and it becomes a fitna for them. And they start getting confusing with their own deen and start questioning many stuff. Like same with the Darwin's theory. People in depth, they in school they teach it as if it's fact. Yeah, they teach it in fact, and they start learning in this, and it's constantly pumped in them. They start questioning. To the extent you have people who are brought up in Muslim families, they start saying things like, look, believe in evolution, for example. See, we had that case again. Remember I talked about the misguided scholar. One man, he said at one point, they said perhaps Adam alayhi salam, he had parents. He started believing in evolution. So, subhanallah. That's why, my dear Muslims, I would advise to really only the ulama should look into those other, like theology, Greek philosophy and stuff like that, in order to refute it, in order to explain it to the people. But the general masses of Muslims shouldn't delve into those kind of books, those kind of studies. Unfortunately, nowadays people are beginning to elevate new sciences which they consider to be knowledge, and they even look down upon and belittle those who who do not have knowledge in such fields. However, the only knowledge we really benefit from is the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah, in accordance to the understanding of the Salaf. The A'imma, the Imams of the Salaf, dislike entertaining debates concerning what is haram and halal. On the contrary, many individuals today argue and enter into debates concerning what Allah had explicitly forbidden, such as riba, pork, alcohol, unslaughtered meat, and they become preoccupied in these matters. This completely opposes the methodology of the Salaf, and it has even been displayed. So nowadays, obviously, you see people, they want to debate every single issue. It's like everything's up for debate. So, if like someone's going to say to them, look, bro, I want to have a debate with you. Is prayer 5 times a day? As an example, that's not a debatable issue. There's no debate in this matter. It's clear cut. You see, so is it allowed to, we're going to have a debate, is it allowed for man to take a legislator besides Allah? I mean, that is a clear cut matter. There's no debating on this issue. So nowadays what you see, many people, they, like I said, on clear cut matters they would want to debate. They want to get involved in arguing with you. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no people become misguided after they have been guided until they resort to futile arguments. Yeah. That's why some people, like I said, you come across people, they want to debate with you on certain matters. My dear Muslims, some things are not debatable. Like the Qadianis, they come along and then they try and say, look, there's a new prophet after Muhammad. That's not debatable. You're a kafir. This is ABC Islam. Everybody knows this. You either give up this kufr and come back to proper Islam. The ulama of the Salaf, they used to believe if Allah desired bad for His servant, He would close the doors of good deeds and action and open the doors of quarrels and arguments. And this is why the ulama did not debate certain topics which are known in the deen by necessity. One should follow what is halal and avoid what is haram, and ask the ulama for hukum, for rulings, and submit, providing the ulama are trustworthy and follow the nahaj of the Salaf, the path of the Salaf. So obviously, my dear Muslim, if you have a good alim, he's trustworthy, you can study from him and you can take from him. And if he tells you something, look, this is the ruling for this, you can accept it. And our people confuse that with blind following. Yeah? Blind following is like, you see, like this alim, he just sets up a completely contradictory to the Quran and Sunnah, yet you continue to follow him. That is what you call blind following. And there are many individuals and scholars today who are too preoccupied with the issues of whether or not ruling by other than Allah revealed amounts to Kufr Akbar or not. And they continuously debate the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 44, and they never want to cease this argument. So I'm sure this is one of the, in the recent times, one of the most debated verses of the Quran. You know, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 44. Whoever rules and judges by other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are from the disbelievers. And subhanAllah, every generation that comes along, Islam wants to debate that same topic. Even though people have been debating it for the last few decades. But people will always want to debate this and never let it go. Any knowledge we learn should be attained in order to practice and convey. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, to fear Allah is sufficient knowledge, and arrogance in Allah is enough arrogance. Okay, so how looks on again.
How's the Wi-Fi?
Okay, 1 second.
Doesn't anyone know confused? Yeah. Okay. The menu.
Yeah, bro. Feel free to order whatever you
What
want.
we do is we write it all down and then we just place it. Do you have a piece of, do you have a pen or something?
Bismillah. Can you hear me, inshallah? Bismillah. So apologies, the Paltalk on my laptop it dropped out. I'm still trying to reconnect. But if we can hear, I'll continue, inshallah. So we said, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, to fear Allah is sufficient knowledge, and arrogance in Allah is enough ignorance. Therefore, knowledge is not how much you learn or know. Rather, knowledge is to fear Allah. And there is a famous saying that whoever fears Allah is an alim, and whoever disobeys him, he's a jahil, he's an ignorant. So it reminded me of this beautiful statement from Shaykh Umar. He once said to Ustad Abu Bara, he said, you know how you can become better than the ulama? So by doing your fard. By doing your fard. It's an alim, he might have huge amount of knowledge, but if he doesn't act upon it, he's useless. He's not better. He's nothing. Whereas someone, he might have a tiny bit of knowledge. He's not a great alim. He doesn't have a huge amount of knowledge in the deen. But everything he has knowledge of, he acts upon it. See, that's why we say, it's better to from the alim who may have 90% knowledge of the deen, but he acts upon 10% of it. Yet the one who has 10% and acts upon 10% of it, he's better. You see. Okay, let me just try logging back on Paltalk on the laptop. Okay, I'm just going to continue. Apologies for the low voice. I'm just going to continue, inshallah. There's a problem with the Wi-Fi. I'm just using the mobile phone to broadcast. Okay. Okay, where are we?
abuse is 5,000 messages. You send in 25 messages, 1,000 messages a month. How much? 25,000. 25,000.
1 second. So, continuing inshallah, so good beneficial knowledge will make one understand Allah, His names and His attributes. And this will lead him to fear his Lord and abstain from what angers him. And good knowledge will make one love Allah and all that which He loves and He admires. And the servant will consequently begin to rely on Him and have sabr in times of hardship and seek His help alone. The servant will be eager to do what his Lord has asked him to do until he loves and hates for the sake of Allah. And he seeks to get closer to Him by doing the sunnah and the nafilah, the voluntary. And Allah mentioned in Bukhari, and the most beloved thing which my slave comes closer to me for him to do, in brackets, is what I've obliged him to do. Yeah, so closest thing, the most beloved thing which my slaves come closer to me is that which I have obliged him to do, so to do the fard. And my servant will continue to come closer to me by performing the nawafil, the voluntary deeds, until I love him. And when I love him, I become his hearing with which he hears, and his seeing with which he sees, and his hand with which he strikes, and his legs with which he walks. And if he asks something from me, I will respond. And if he seeks my protection, I will protect him. And I will never hesitate to do anything I wish to do. And the mu'min hates death, and I hate death, and I hate for him to commit sin. So, like I mentioned, my dear Muslims, obviously with the knowledge that we have, the first and foremost priority with the knowledge is we do the fard which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us. That is the first priority, to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded. And then, if we can, to follow it up with lots of voluntary deeds, lots of nawafil, inshallah. And it's also narrated so the Prophet ﷺ said to Ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Abbas, that preserve Allah's deen and Allah will preserve you. Protect Allah's deen and He will be in front of you. Recognize Allah in the times of ease and He will recognize you in the times of hardship. Another piece of knowledge which the people they exaggerate are which people exaggerate and are preoccupied with is asking the ulama or the students of knowledge who their sheikhs are, where they have studied and for how long. Such people eventually end up losing focus and interest in what Allah and His Messenger have said, and they are more concerned about knowing the person as opposed to the haqq. They should listen first and compare what is said in the Quran and the Sunnah. The one who seeks knowledge in order to defend the corrupted rulers or to debate with the ulama will be in hell. As the Prophet Muhammad said, whoever sought ilm, knowledge, in order to please corrupt people or to challenge the ulama or to show off to people, he is in the hellfire, in the fire. He is in the fire. Therefore, always ask for knowledge and do not say that I am knowledgeable. Rather say I am a student of knowledge and I am always studying. And have sabr and have patience. The Prophet Muhammad used to make this dua which I mentioned at the beginning. Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wa a'udhu bika min ilmin لا ينفع. That, oh Allah, I ask for your good knowledge which is beneficial, and I seek refuge in you from the knowledge which is fruitless. I'm nearly finished. So, my dear Muslims, obviously make this dua all the time. Inshallah, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase you in beneficial knowledge. Study the deen. Study the deen from, if you can find a good alim. I know it's like looking for a needle in a haystack these days. You know, if you can find a good alim from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, who is known for his trustworthiness, known for speaking the haqq, known for speaking out against the taghut. You know, if you can study all the time and be busy studying deen. You know, don't make it like it's just a hobby. In my spare time I like to study the deen. Make it something as a daily routine, or a regular routine in your life. Especially when you have children, etc. Make that priority for them, studying the deen. They need that more, my dear Muslims, than for them to become doctors and engineers. They need to learn more important for them to learn about Allah, learn about Islam, learn about halal and haram. That is more beneficial to them. And the most important thing, I'll say, is the knowledge that you have. Whatever you know so far, act upon all of that you know. It's mentioned that the Sahaba, they used to learn 10 verses of the Quran and used to understand them fully and act upon it before they moved on to another 10 verses. So someone, you might be a student of knowledge, you might be someone who recently practicing, you might feel you don't have much knowledge, but whatever knowledge you have, Allah will account you with that. So act upon that which you have and make dua to Allah make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase you in knowledge. And the more knowledge you gain, act upon it. And do not become like those Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned. They become like donkeys carrying books on their back. They have all this knowledge, but it's not benefiting them. They're not utilizing it. Or even worse, they're utilizing that knowledge to spread the corruption, to cement the thrones of the taghut. So, my dear Muslim, that is the topic, knowledge which is not beneficial. And may I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, in all of our gatherings, all of our studies, to make us increase in knowledge which is beneficial for us, and to save us from knowledge which is not beneficial, and to protect us from those misguided people who want to spread the corruption. I hope you have benefited. Jazakallah khair for listening.